Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, any cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local and national Native news and events, and as you know, Haley, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
You're absolutely right, Dega, and this portion of the show is supported by the Native American Community Development Institute, Minneapolis.
Yes.
And then also, we have an announcement that's going to be happening tomorrow. This is the Indian Month celebration from the Indian Health Board, which is going to be taking place tomorrow, May 19th. That'll be from noon to 3 p.m. And they're going to have frozen yogurt trucks, themed raffle baskets, a balloon artist, a live DJ, language games, bicycle raffles, a big resource fair, and then lunch is also going to be served until gone. So make sure you get there right away, because we all love the food.
And well, I want to do the balloon artist thing. That sounds pretty cool.
Right. And that'll be located at 1315 East 24th Street, Minneapolis.
Right on. We'll bring that up later. Hey, we have Robert Lilligren, CEO of NACD. I did say that one in a row.
Very
now.
well.
Yes. Native American Community Development Institute. And thank goodness I have a good voice, because, boy, my reading skills are always a little to be questioned. Hey, good to see you, Robert. What's going on?
Nice seeing you, Robert. Nice seeing you, Haley. Great to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Lot going on. Lots happening on the avenue. We love talking to Robert because we talk about local and national politics and events and things. And Robert's been plugged in for many years, and he gives us his insight and also a lot of great information about what's going on. And I know we had
maybe too many years. Maybe I've been plugged in for too many years, Robert.
No, don't say that, because I'm right behind you. Oh, wow. Hey, but I am feeling it at the bad shoulder, but that's a different show, I think.
It could be the rain. It could be the rain. Right, the bad shoulder at this age.
Exactly. It's been raining for months then. Hey, so we had one of your Ho-Chunk. We had a whole Ho-Chunk week last week. It was really interesting. We had Danielle DeLong on.
Oh, great.
We had, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but the first city council member in Madison, and she was Ho-Chunk, and first Native American city council member in Madison, and that was really, really excited. So we're going to have her come back too.
Cool.
So we talked about the Four Sisters market and what's going on over there. Why don't we jump into that right now, because a lot's happened and happening.
I love it. Thanks. And again, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And I know that you also had on your Ho-Chunk week last week, one of the NACD staffers, Destiny Jones, our Ho-Chunk sister, who manages our Four Sisters Farmers Market and supports our food sovereignty work, Four Sisters Food Sovereignty. And she's just incredibly talented young Native professional. And we're just our type at NACD, she's really going places, you know. So we have our Four Sisters. Four Sisters Farmers Market is what we're kind of known for, and market season is just about to come on. It starts, and I'm just trying to grab the right date, and I had it here a second ago. June 1st. It's Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. right there at the yellow building where Powwow Grounds is and our All My Relations Arts Gallery. So I invite people to stop on down there, and if folks are interested in being vendors there, you can go to the NACD website and just follow the links to Four Sisters as a vendor application. So people are welcome to apply. And as you know, it's kind of a happening place on the American Indian Cultural Corridor. Lots of folks show up.
Yeah. I love it. And I put in the suggestion box, Robert, is that you guys should buy one of those big tents, like they have over stadiums, and have it year round in the parking.
Oh my gosh.
That would
What a
be
great
awesome.
idea. Well,
Awesome.
and in our longer term vision of our Four Sisters Food Sovereignty work, having a bricks and mortar produce and indigenous butcher shop as part of our vision. That's a little further out, but we are always expanding. The market grows every year. And now we have our Four Sisters Urban Farm as part of our umbrella of Four Sisters Food Sovereignty work. And that is up and running. And I know that when Destiny was here last week, she was previewing or promoting an event that took place at the farm on Saturday, which was incredible. And it was our spring welcoming and food sovereignty celebration. There was maybe, I don't even know how many, a dozen community orgs that were partnering on it. It was the kind of community building that you just love seeing, and everybody there credited the Four Sisters Farm and NACD's work there as a magnet to bring that kind of community together. It was great. We gave away plants, we had a blessing, we had a song, and it was really something.
And that area too was a little dark until you guys came there, and that's so exciting that how something like that can kind of flip an area in a neighborhood.
You are exactly right, Robert. And I lived just a few blocks from there for 36 years, and it was just this magnet of violent crime and drug dealing, and it's owned by our county here, Hennepin County, their rail authority, and they had tried for decades these different strategies to try to just calm that down. The local neighbors tried everything. And a few years back, they came to NACD and they asked if we'd be interested in farming there or if we knew somebody that would. And I was like, oh, I don't know. That's a tough little spot. And after negotiating for quite a while, they essentially gave us not ownership, but access to it to start establishing our farm. And we've been at it for several years now. This is kind of the first big scale up where there's going to be some real production going on, and the neighbors loved it. I mean, these guys that live around there, my old neighbors, literally hauled concrete barriers out to block the streets, just trying to drive away some of the drug dealing and violent crime. And we started there in ceremony, in prayer. Once we were there doing ceremony, prayer, and gunfire broke out right next to us, and bullets are flying through the leaves, and we all just stood there. Nobody hit the ground. It was like, we're protected here, and it's just a different story in just a few short years, and it's just wonderful to contribute to that kind of positive relationship to land.
Yeah, definitely. And just back to the market too. It's a great place to spend an hour if you have lunch, nice out, running into people I haven't seen maybe all winter or in a while, and just a lot of fun. And I know they're planning on more music. I know the opening last year or the last few years you've had bands out there, and I heard the Pretendians are going to be out there, and so it's going to be a festival.
We have a DJ that specializes in vintage native music that's going to be spinning at the opening, and it's just a place for community to come together. It's providing great access to good food for the whole community right around there. We have hooked in all kinds of support for people to be able to buy healthy foods. You can leverage your dollar maybe 2 or 3 times through different programs we have going there. But it is just a place it's so nice on the avenue, on the American Indian Cultural Corridor, to have a real place to meet and greet and see and be seen and just gather together in community.
Exactly. And for me to gander up some votes for next election.
There you go. Always the politician, aren't you, Robert?
Yeah. I learned from the best. Yeah. Well, there's so much more going on, and we got like a minute left here, and I want to really get into that. But, I think if people have not been there, I know people from all over the country come to the powwow grounds and to all my relations art gallery as a stopping point. So I just want to welcome everyone there, and maybe we can just give the address one more time, especially to our people that listen in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's 1414 East Franklin. It's right on the corner of Franklin Avenue and 15th Street. You can't miss it. It's a bright yellow building. And also, there's so much going on for Indian Month, right? So we have our open house next Tuesday, the 23rd, 11:30 to 2. Everyone's welcome. Lunch, music, fun, drawings. It's a party, and it just helps build the community and really embrace American Indian Month in Minnesota. It's not November. We were celebrating November as well, but in Minnesota, we have American Indian Month in May. So if folks want to stop on down next Tuesday for lunch, that would be great.
That's perfect. And I recommend you get a balloon artist, because that sounds pretty exciting at the other event that we talked about. But hey, we're here with Robert Lilligren, CEO of NACD, Native American Community Development Institute, and here in the Minneapolis and the Twin City areas. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Ho! Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas will help you get where you want to go. Located in downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality at Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas. Apply today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
When it comes to mental health, connections with others can be a way forward. How do you reach out when you need someone? What do you do to support those who struggle? Whether you're struggling or know someone who struggles, see connections as comfort, hope, and joy, like sending a text, sharing a moment, offering a hug, seeing an old friend, seeing your grandma. Together we can find ways to create a path forward. Visit cmentalhealth.org. Visit cmentalhealth.org.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Students at participating Twin Cities high schools can get a summer's worth of rides on buses and light rail for just $30 with a summer student pass. From June 1st through September 5th, students can get unlimited rides on buses and trains up to a $3.25 fare. For a list of participating schools and to purchase a pass, visit metrotransit.org/summer-student-pass. Again, that's metrotransit.org/summer-student-pass.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by the Native American Community Clinic on Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis, honoring health and tradition.
Yes, they do. They do great work over there. And again, Friday, there's happenings over there from 10 to 3, and it's Indian Month, so we're all excited about that. I'm here again with Robert Lilligren, CEO of NACT, and we're talking about what's happening on the Avenue and the great history and the great vibe and the garden. Let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind. Let's go into the political realm here, because we talk a little bit about, I'm proud to be a Minnesotan, and I'm living in the Twin Cities. I live in St. Paul, but there's things happening that people are moving here because of the laws are changing in other states. There's things that are happening really progressively here. We have a trifecta at the Capitol for us, and there's an election every year in Minneapolis, right, Robert?
Oh, yeah. We're busy, yeah. And so the trifecta that Robert's talking about is, of course, our governor's office, our Senate, and our House are all controlled by the Democratic Party, or here we have the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, or GFL. And man, those guys are governing for efficiency this session. More stuff has got done this session than I've seen in decades. And I was just talking to someone about this earlier today who didn't like something that was happening. But I think whether you like it or not, I think people appreciate when something gets done in government. So these guys have just done an amazing job, and I happen to agree with most of what they're doing.
Right. I have a question too. Like, let's say we found out that the Saving the Wolf bill wasn't in the omnibus bill for next time. Can that be brought up next year in next session? And how does that work? Do they take a session off for bills, or is it straight through for next year?
Yeah, anything's fair game. Anything that you can get the majority of votes for, I guess, is fair game. And I'm not a state legislative expert, but yeah, so it can come up next year. It can continue to come up. Often that's the pathway a bill takes. It may take more than one session to gain all the support that it needs. This year happens to be a bonding year, whether they bond or not. And so that's every other session is a bonding year. But even in a bonding year or an off bonding year, pretty much anything policy related can be brought up.
Yeah, that's good. And I know we have that great bill, and we have that office for missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. And that took a year or so to get through, and it's a bipartisan bill now,
Right.
And support.
Yep. That's a great example. And then, at first there's the policy piece, right? Do we create this office or not? This office for missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. And then once that threshold's met, then it's putting money toward it, right? And that's always another conversation. And so really hats off to now Senator Mary Kunesh for starting that when she was in the House and seeing that through and making sure that continues to gain that bipartisan support that you're talking about. Now it's a normal thing, right, to talk about, which it should be an elevated conversation. So that's a really good example.
And she's really pushing the license plate too, that could help support rewards for missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives, which I think is a brilliant idea, because I want to get one of those plates.
Right. And so that's another, the policy's one thing, the money's another thing. Mm-hmm. So hats off to our Native legislators and our allies who are really moving this forward.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about how it seems like every year now we have an election in Minneapolis.
We do.
And people are watching us.
Right. So it's 7 years in a row we'll have elections every year. Sometimes municipal, state. Of course, next year it's the federal elections and state elections, a big year. But every single year for 7 years, we have elections here in Minneapolis. And we're about in the middle of that right now, maybe the third year. And so at our organization, NACD, we have our Make Voting a Tradition project. It's almost 10 years old, and it's a year-round political and civic engagement effort for not just the local urban Indian community. We're now statewide, expanding statewide, and looking for more partners in the greater Minnesota area. And then we're part of national conversations about what these Native specific strategies might look like in 2024. And it's interesting. And so here in Minneapolis, we have about the lowest touch elections this year. It's strictly city council, no mayor even, no other municipal offices. And so we're really getting a flavor for how these different parts of the city, wards we call them, like districts, are thinking politically. And we've had quite a shift to the left in our municipal government, especially since George Floyd was murdered here. And then we have the status quo that's, the status quo always defends itself. So they're strategizing, to retain power and sort of message that these socialists or these more left politicians are just a blip and they don't really represent the city. But numbers show something going on here in the city. And so I happen to think this isn't just a blip, and this is a philosophical, political, and generational shift. And I think we're going to see a similar kind of dynamic in the national elections next year.
It's interesting that you say that, because I feel like in our lifetime, we've gone through many, many shifts. And, being a child of the 60s, with human rights, African-American, Native rights, BIPOC rights, then we've gone all the way up to, gay marriage was a thing 10 years prior to that. Was like, oh no, that's a hot button. Don't touch that. And it's become just a reality. Those are things in our life, just a couple examples in our lifetime that seem so off topic is now just natural.
Right. Yeah. Marriage equality became the law of the land. The sky didn't fall, the earth didn't crumble. Everything kind of just went on. Right. So we learned something. And here in Minnesota, we have a very robust progressive sort of population. We also have a very robust conservative population. In just my experience, my few decades in the political world, there were always these alternative parties that tried to build up, the Progressive Party, Progressive Minnesota, and things like that. And so that's just part of our political culture here. But I'll tell you, back in 2008, kind of when I was deeply involved in politics, and I was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention in Denver. That was the year that we nominated then Senator Obama for president. And man, you could feel that generational current. We talked about it a lot. I was kind of more in the middle. Now I'm definitely on the elder side of the ledger. But then I was kind of in the middle, like a bridge between generations. And we were very serious. And I really saw what I then called and still call the new electorate activating. And it's like, okay, now how do we transfer to that? How do we support this shift? And it's been kind of bumpy on the way, and we're maybe partway there, but ultimately it's a numbers game, right? There's more votes in that sector now than there are in the old sector, and so we got to figure it out and how we do this in a good and orderly way.
And I'm a broken record, and especially when we're talking, is that we have so much gratitude to the Gen Xers, really. And they're paying attention, and they're realizing that they're not going to live as long. They're not going to own houses. They're not going to go to college unless they own 2 house payments. And they're engaged. And this is, I think, the last year that the boomers are going to outnumber them.
Right. And so, it's just been very interesting. I've been kind of splicing and dicing some municipal election results over the last year or so. And you can just see, we had a referendum here in Minneapolis to reform our government from a strong council system to a strong mayor. That prevailed. Very close election, but a majority of wards in the city voted against it. And so when you look at the demographics of those wards, the ones who voted against it tended to be browner, poorer, younger. The ones that voted for it, that ultimately passed it, a minority of wards, I will add, were older, whiter, richer. And so to me, you're seeing that, that status quo desperately trying to cling to to power while there's a whole nother electorate churning.
Wow. And it's interesting. Obama was our age, and I always kind of felt that he was a centrist, and he kind of proved that in a lot of different ways.
I think, well, he was younger than us, or at least than me. He was the first president, even way back then, that was ever younger than me, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I think, you know, you have to govern from somewhere that you can govern from, right? And so if that's from the center, you know, this is sort of a country that balances between center right, center left, and then people outside of that spectrum influence what goes on within that center, right? But I wonder if Obama was just your drinking buddy or your next door neighbor, you know, what you'd hear from him politically then, or when he's president and trying to govern an entire country.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know that whole story that I was talking about when I was going to tell him to free Leonard Peltier. I had a opportunity to have my picture taken with Obama, and the story goes, I'm going to tell him to tell Joe Biden this and that, and then I get into the room. We're first in line, me and another legislator. He puts his hands out to shake your hand, smiles, and asks how you're doing. I wanted to hug him and kiss him, and then next thing, you know, all this went down, and then I shook his hand, took his picture, and then 13 seconds I was whisked away. But it was like I was going to tell him what's up, and then his charisma just hit me. It was like, oh my God,
you're awed by his star power.
Exactly.
I got to spend little bits of time with him a couple times. He was a very powerful president.
Yeah, definitely. Robert, do you need to get going, because I know you got a meeting coming up, or do you have time for one more segment?
You know, I can hang for a bit. Sure.
Okay, let's do one more segment. Hey, we're here with Robert Lilligren, CEO of NADD, Native American Community Development Institute here in the Twin Cities, and we're having our weekly conversation. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas will help you get where you want to go. Located in downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality at Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas. Apply today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
When it comes to mental health, connections with others can be a way forward. How do you reach out when you need someone? What do you do to support those who struggle? Whether you're struggling or know someone who struggles, see connections as comfort, hope, and joy. Like sending a text, sharing a moment, offering a hug, seeing an old friend, seeing your grandma. Together we can find ways to create a path forward. Visit cmentalhealth.org. Visit cmentalhealth.org.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Students at participating Twin Cities high schools can get a summer's worth of rides on buses and light rail for just $30 with a summer student pass. From June 1st through September 5th, students can get unlimited rides on buses and trains up to a $3.25 fare. For a list of participating schools and to purchase a pass, visit metrotransit.org/summer-student-pass. Again, that's metrotransit.org/summer-student-pass.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, we're here with Robert Lilligren, and I know we're going to make this 12-minute segment go really fast. But we're really, I always have a good time when we talk, Robert, and you get me energized, and we talk a lot of way things were, the way things are, our history of our people, the history of the country. I love history, so it's always fun to talk to you and just to see what's going on now and compared to when we were younger and all those things. So I appreciate you being on, and we were talking a little politics there and a little Obama and how things have changed over the years, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but I read somewhere that there's like a 80-year cycle, and whether it's like fascism comes up in the United States and goes down, and they talk about that all the way from the Civil War, because in a lot of sense, that war was about slavery and economic development and right and wrong and left and right. And then we've had like a 80-year cycle or a 40-year cycle ever since. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah, the 40-year cycle idea, I've heard a little about that. I'm not really a political scientist or historian. I'm more of a practitioner, but I do believe it's cyclic, right? We do see it. I've heard that 40-year, which would then, be consistent with an 80-year cycle. And to me, it's interesting to be in one, we must be peaking in some sort of cycle around division and polarization. And I think that's been part of our political culture from the beginning of this country, but it really is spiking right now. And to be living in it is a little less fun than reading about it as history, right? But it's about seeing how our public figures, our politicians, how they express themselves, right? And that kind of gives permission to broader communities to express themselves, and the kind of blatant racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia that we're seeing today, I never thought we'd see. Like we were talking about in the last segment, I didn't know that we would move towards marriage equality so quickly. Mm-hmm. That was good, but this backlash of, we had a black president, and so all of a sudden we have this incredibly racist culture. We have marriage equality, and we have this incredibly homophobic movements going on. The anti-Semitic movements, the anti-trans movements. This thing about drag queens. What difference does it make? Well, I guess to some people it makes a lot of difference.
Right.
And that's rooted in misogyny, homophobia, transphobia.
Well,
and a little shocking.
I heard a great quote yesterday, and I can't remember what, it was a local politician in a different state that they were really going to hammer down on abortion rights. And
Oh yeah.
and she said something very interesting that is just one of those common sense things that we don't think of because we're in the middle of the battle. But she said, I don't remember women asking you for help in this.
Right. It's exactly the point, right? And it's, it just shows again that misogyny, sexism, it's hurting people, it's killing people,
Right.
and so you have this sort of sanctity of life believers that are really pushing an agenda that's really killing people. And so it's inconsistent. It was settled law, incredibly popular law. There was no reason for it to be overturned by the Supreme Court, Supreme Court with a very clear agenda to be taking people's rights away. And so I think that means everybody should be concerned about what rights they're going to be losing under this kind of a regime.
Well, and we're not political scientists, but we talk about a little bit about what we experienced in the religious right in the Reagan era was the beginning of this. And
of this period, right? So you talk about those cycles.
Right.
This kind of puritanical politics has always been part of it. So yeah, remember all that? The moral majority, which was neither moral nor a majority, and the Contract for America,
Newt
Gingrich's big plan. I mean, that was really the framework that we're living in today.
And they named it the Contract on America. Is what it ended up being.
Right, Contract on America. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, and we know that he divorced his wife while she was in the hospital with cancer, and still was a great Republican leader as far as they were concerned. And then those are things that I think about, and I also think about like Reagan deregulated so many things. There was a middle class at that time, and now there isn't a middle class because of the unions aren't as strong as they were when we were kids. Your dad was in a union at CCO, I'm sure. They were,
he retired from it.
Yeah, and I was a teacher, and so it's amazing that one of the deregulations is media. And if you remember back then, you could only own 2 stations in one state.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why the Hubbard Broadcasting was all over the 5-state area, and CCO was their own element. They weren't owned by CBS. And those are the things that we're kind of fighting back now because, God, Rush Limbaugh had a popular audience for so many years because of that.
Right. Well, in the deregulation of media, I mean, just look at all the Reagan era deregulation efforts, the airlines, whatever. The one we live with day in and day out here was the deregulation of the social safety network, especially for people with mental illness or addiction or experiencing homelessness. Now we have these enormous homelessness encampments, people living unsheltered, relatives living unsheltered, because there isn't the robust support that folks require to live in a safer, more sustainable way. That was all Reagan deregulation. His political cronies applauded it at the time, and now a few decades later, we're still living with the outcomes.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think people talk about that enough, that deregulation helps spur this, whether it's people that shouldn't have guns or people that are homeless and that can, and, with mental illness that need help. I know we refer back to the law of forgotten natives, but there was a lot of people there that felt safe there and not safe in other situations where possibly, if we were back to the prior to Reagan deregulation, they'd have a place to live and feel safe.
Right. They'd have a place to be in community, right? And that's what I felt was happening at the Wall of Forgotten Natives. People had community there. It wasn't necessarily healthy or safe, but it was community. And just last night, Robert, I had this opportunity as a member of our Metropolitan Council, which is our regional governing body here, 7-county metro government. And we had presentations from our young leaders, interns, and they were working in policy areas. And these are young people, high school age, who are incredibly interested in public policy and how public policy can support progress. And a lot of the groups, there were maybe 10 of them, presented on housing or intersections of like housing and transportation or housing and jobs. And what so many of them lifted up was housing is not just accessible because it's affordable, but it helps build community, builds a sense of place, connection to the land, connection, feelings of belonging. And so this idea of community was just really prominent in so many of these presentations. And where in policy do we address that? We talk about affordable housing as being 30% of the metropolitan median income, or X percentage of someone's monthly household income. But where do we say this housing is supporting building community or building a sense of belonging?
Wow.
And that's what these young people were asking for.
Wow. I really need to think about that. That's really deep and has a lot of little antennas out there for thought.
Lots of them. You can go to the Metropolitan Council website. If you look at the Committee of the Whole agenda, you can see every one of their presentations. They are breathtaking.
Wow. That is breathtaking. Haley, I know you are listening intently and running things in the background here. Do you ever have a question for Robert at all? And it's okay if you don't, because I know you're working hard back there, but it's amazing to have people like Robert on the show. And Haley's been working with us for 3 weeks now, and we've been just having kick butt guests as usual. And it's just been a learning experience, and it always is for me, right, Haley?
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And I'm always very grateful for you, Dega, and this opportunity to come work with you guys and talk to people like you, Robert, who are just doing so much in the community. And it's like a free little class for me. So I love learning, and this is amazing. So thanks.
And me too. I appreciate that, Haley. I'm constantly remembering things and learning things when we talk, Robert.
Yeah, no, cool. And Haley, it's great to be here with you, and it's great to be on the show. I have been joking lately, and maybe you've heard this already, but I've been a lot more my mom would have said mouthy lately. I think maybe I'd say forthcoming or direct, but the people around me are kind of supporting it. And they go, "This is what we expect from our elders. We want this kind of directness, this guidance." And so I don't want to be a crab apple all the time, but I'm much more speaking my mind. And like I said, both with my Native relatives and outside the Native community, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about it. So watch out.
Well, I think what's really great for that, it really and seriously, because I've always appreciated people that are that way. And Wendy's from New York, so she's always that way. But you never really have to guess where you're coming from. And I do too, seriously appreciate that. Yeah. I really do.
Cool. Right. Well, and as I've expressed concern, I've built a public profile and a career on being a nice guy, right? And so how far can I push that before I lose ground? So I guess we'll find out.
Well, if you say it with a smile, like we said, Lean always did, you got them. You got the ones that are worried, confused, and the other ones are going, "Go get them, Robert."
Right. Say it with a smile and a laugh, like Marlene Halgemore did.
That's right. Hey, thanks so much, Robert. It's always so great to have you on, and can't wait to talk again. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and Pinigigi Robert Lilligren of Native American Community Development Institute. We'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us. Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas will help you get where you want to go. Located in downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality at Doherty Family College at the University of St. Thomas. Apply today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
When it comes to mental health, connections with others can be a way forward. How do you reach out when you need someone? What do you do to support those who struggle? Whether you're struggling or know someone who struggles, see connections as comfort, hope, and joy, like sending a text, sharing a moment, offering a hug, seeing an old friend, seeing your grandma. Together we can find ways to create a path forward. Visit cmentalhealth.org. Visit cmentalhealth.org.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Students at participating Twin Cities high schools can get a summer's worth of rides on buses and light rail for just $30 with a summer student pass. From June 1st through September 5th, students can get unlimited rides on buses and trains up to a $3.25 fare. For a list of participating schools and to purchase a pass, visit metrotransit.org/summer-student-pass. Again, that's metrotransit.org/summer-student-pass.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Wow. Hey, part 2, Wendy.
Yeah, this one's going to be a lot better, a lot happier and lighthearted. You know, Robert, I didn't even realize that I wasn't even planning on talking about the squirrels.
That's what's great about live radio. You can just kind of
really heavy on my mind, and it really, honestly, you know, when you see something like that and you see an animal struggle and really suffer like that, it really, to me, really, I just can't even watch it. I mean, it was heartbreaking. It was like, do we have a 40-foot ladder in our house? I was going to go on our property and get the squirrel down, you know.
Exactly.
You know, so it's just a hard thing. I'm glad we looked today. I mean, I made kind of a ruckus. I've called that company and told them what's happening and talked to them about the squirrels and my concern, and I don't see any traps up there now. There might be traps up there. They might be like, you know what, we need to get these traps out of these people's view, and they might have put them somewhere else. But yeah. So anyway, there's always a more humane way to do things. Sometimes it might be a little bit harder, it takes a little bit longer, but there's always the humane way to do things. And that's what I want.
Exactly.
Just people to think about, because these companies, Robert, they tell you we do it the most humane way possible. We relocate the squirrels where there's food sources. This is what this guy was telling me. So he's telling me all these good things, but.
So we're going to do another segment on this, or no?
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not.
No, what
I'm
I
done
do
talking about it,
I'm
and
not,
I have a fun
wait,
story I want to share.
Give me 1 second. I want to just say one thing.
Yeah.
It's horrific. It was a horrific experience for both of us, and these are our relatives, and I just want to throw that out there too, because everywhere I looked to break them out, Wendy, it said that how inhumane it was to put them in a different area.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to say that.
Right. You said article after article that you looked up how inhumane that was to relocate them because they are so territorial.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Enough about the squirrels.
Stay with us.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of you may have heard about the bald eagle named Murphy.
Yes.
Yes, he's been all over the internet. So he's from Missouri, and he lives in a sanctuary, the World Bird Sanctuary in Missouri. So Murphy has been there for a really long time because he has a broken wing or a wing that's deformed or something. Well, he can't fly, so he's been there. He's 31 years old. And what happened about a month ago was because the weather changes and, it's like the season to have babies and stuff. Murphy found a rock that he was incubating.
Wow.
So what they found was Murphy he found a bunch of sticks, and he's on the ground, right? Because he can't fly. So he's not in a tree or anything, but he kind of made this little nest that he thought was a nest. It wasn't much of a nest, but he put the rock in there and he was incubating the rock. He would get up and turn the rock. He would sit on the rock. He would squawk at the other eagles that would come around to say, to protect the rock. And he really, did this. And, the sanctuary thought, well, this is so cute and everything. But how sad is it that he thinks this rock is going to hatch and have a baby eagle? And as far as the sanctuary knows, he's never had any eaglets of his own. And just to say, eagles, bald eagles together, the male and the female co-parent. So they're both very involved. And this explains Murphy's behavior, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was, they found an eaglet, that's mom died.
Come on.
Yeah. So they did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they took the rock out, right? They had to sneak the rock out when Murphy wasn't looking, right? And they put this eaglet behind kind of a little bit of a fence so that Murphy could see him, but not really touch him, because honestly, they really didn't know how he was going to react when he saw it. He could have killed it, really.
Right.
But what happened was Murphy is turning out to be a pretty good stepdad.
Oh.
Yeah, he's feeding the eaglet and is on his best behavior, and he's really bonding with this little eaglet. And there's so many pictures on the internet. So all you have to do is Google Murphy eagle, and it'll tell you about the whole story. And it really is quite heartwarming. And just goes to show like how animals really want to nurture and care for the young, right? And he's feeding the little eagle. It's really, really, really cute. It's adorable, and it's just like a really, really heartwarming story. I have another story. It's kitten season. So it's kitten season right now, and I'm going to go bad news now. So bad news, but then I'm going to go good news.
Oh, okay.
So St. Paul and Minneapolis Animal Care and Control is getting more kittens and cats right now than they know what to do with. They have more cats. So this is the first time in years that they're euthanizing cats.
Oh my God.
Because they just don't have enough room.
No.
There's just not enough people out there who want cats,
Wow.
right? So they're overwhelmed with these cats, and it's also kitten season. So all the rescues are really looking for fosters. So if you have room in your house and you could foster, honestly, Robert, I would foster, but right now we have 3 sick animals in our house, so we really
And so
can't.
it's really like 6 animals.
It is. It's a lot. But anyway, if you could foster, it's a really helpful. And when you foster, you're really saving 2 animals' lives, right? You're saving the animal that you're fostering, so that animal does not get euthanized, and you're also making room for another animal to come in to rescue.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So also, baby bunnies are being born right now.
Oh my God.
You know, bunnies, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this on the air. They're not the smartest animals.
Oh.
So listen, they make their nest in the ground, like in the middle of your yard. Our neighbor who moved away, she used to have a hunting dog, and the hunting dog would go out there every day. What did she have in her backyard? The bunny. The bunny built a nest in the middle of her yard when there's a hunting dog on the property every day. Like, that's not very smart.
No.
I'm sorry to say. But our neighbor was really awesome. What she did was she put like a little fencing around the.
Really?
Yeah, she put a fence around the nest. So the dog couldn't get in it, but the mother bunny can go in and out of the nest and feed her young, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was really happy about that. But, you know, a lot of people will see the baby bunnies in the nest in the ground, and say, oh my God, I have to rescue them. I need to bring them, you know, somewhere. But you don't leave them alone. What you want to do is make like a, what they say is like get some twigs and put them around the nest, or get some yarn and put it around the nest, or put flour around the nest, so that you'll be able to see whether the mom is going back and forth and feeding the babies, right?
Wow.
You could also, if the mother's not around, you could pick up one of the babies, turn them upside down, and look at their belly. And if you see a nice little round belly, you know that the bunny has milk in it, and you know that the bunny is safe. And you could pick up the bunny. The mom's not going to say, oh, I'm not taking care of my baby anymore because a human touched it. That doesn't happen. So you want to keep your animals out of the area. Use grass twigs to make a little tic-tac-toe pattern over the nest to assess whether the mother is returning to nurse the young. Leave them alone. If you really know that the mom's not coming around and feeding the babies, and you turn them upside down and the baby's belly is really skinny, you want to call your local wildlife rehabilitation center to take further action.
All right, on, Wendy. Hey, Pinagigi, for being on half the show. It's like the old days of Pilot's Progressive Party.
I have more. Do you want more?
next week.
All right.
Or maybe even tomorrow. Hey, if you're listening to the show, you're part of the resistance. Free Leonard Peltier now. We are the 7th generation.